Hello, my name's Baharier and I'm a DIY artist, and welcome to my settee. I've been asked, how has my mental health been affected by lockdown? Well, with my tickle stick here, not at all. Ha ha. So I wrote this piece, and I wrote it in response to a poetry workshop I went to. And during the poetry workshop, I didn't understand some instructions. So this is called The Fool's Journey, Part 1 by Baharier. Jackanory, if you know what Jackanory is, I'll tell you a story. This is a story. The smell of freshly cut grass fills the fool's nostrils and reminded her of her mother's own birth. For it was her mother who always mentioned the smell of the season's first cut grass, as it was that emotive smell that brought back her grandmother's face, the mother of her mother, whose funeral's perfume was freshly cut grass. It was now the smell she would have to remember her mother by as a behavioural trait. At this point, her feet curled up and her knees bent and she fell to the ground. The dampness of the grass could be felt through the cloth on her trousers and the palms of her hands as she knelt on the grass, before rolling over and lying flat on her back, looking up to the sky. She watched the clouds roll by, telling herself stories as she watched the shapes shift and transform before her. It had been a long time since Mother Earth had held her. As the clouds rolled by, her mind drifted to the time she was berated. She had suffered some confusion. Would you stand a child in the corner? The fool that she is had difficulty understanding what was expected of her. In her naivety, she'd asked for help. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Ask for help. But the teacher, like so many teachers, misunderstood. The fool, who was not badly behaved, oh no, she was just confused and did not understand. Not understanding the information she was being bombarded with, affecting all of her senses. And she did not understand. Her question to the teacher was met with more head-on confusion, as she tried to comprehend and got nowhere. She was a child, misunderstood. During her childhood, she filled carrier bag after carrier bag she carried with her. This carrier bag as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, as a mother, as an auntie, and as a senior citizen. She carries the weight of her belongings on her stick, just like Dick Whittington. This is the child who was shamed when asking for help, whose traumatic baggage can never be unpacked. Is standing a child in the corner good behaviour or good punishment? No, I should think not. Our fool is no ordinary fool. She's the age she is, and it's after school. 3 decades have passed, but still she remembers. She was the thick kid, the stupid kid, the special needs kid, in prison with her enemies, for the Italian gang who threw stones at her at home time. They were also in the dunce class. In those days there was no hate crime for racist kids. who had racist parents. Our fool killed Jesus according to the Catholic Christian offsprings. When did it become fashionable to stand a child in the corner? The fool understood the object of this game was to shame, humiliate her into compliance. It was the same as mental health medication. And it was apparently the Victorians who were famous for this punitive discipline. It was used to control children in both the USA and England. It became known as the dunce's corner, and for many a disabled child they would be sat at a designated dunce table and even be forced to wear a dunce's cap. You see, our fool is a disabled adult, and a disabled adult is a disabled child. Dunces, a fact about John Donne's scalps and the origins of dunce. He was born around 1266 in Duns and was a Franciscan priest, philosopher and theologian, one of the most highly regarded during the Middle Ages. And he wore a pointed cap for learning. However, he went out of fashion during the Renaissance and was mocked, and those who supported him became known as duncemen, or dunces, hence the pointed cap, was then associated with idiocracy and stupidity. The legacy left is the paper-made dunce cap, used as a punishment in schools, and it carries the same message as the thick kid, the stupid kid, the kid disabled by a learning difference kid. The adults who've asked for help and the teacher who gets it wrong prescribes a castratory punishment of a Victorian era as a request for help is refused. If misunderstanding and then asking for help is confused by others as disruption, how will our fool learn? How will our fool not be disturbed by the coercion through shaming which is being enforced by a draconian method? How and who can the fool our adult trust? Any of those who claim to nurture, often hindering, and using methods of shaming and blaming as they don't hear a cry for help. What would you do if the fool said to you, "I don't understand what you want me to do"? Berating her, will that solve the problem? And in doing so, you make her feel stupid. So put yourself in her shoes and ask yourself, what would I need? You could pull up a chair and sit down beside her and ask her, what would help? You could look into her eyes. She's not a dunce, not a cunt, not a stupid, not a thick git. She's a person, all right? She's a human being, like you and like me. She just learns differently. The child who is an adult needs love, not your reprisal. Disapproval. Does that help anyone to learn? Have you ever known a reprisal solve a problem? Instead, it produces fear, anxiety, self-harm, and imposes ideas of being rubbish and not being good enough, amongst other things. It's a recipe of a meltdown of the mental health kind. If you experience the feelings of overwhelming disapproval caused by shame, would it make you think that others do not approve of you? Wear the fool's shoes just for a moment. Feel as the fool does as she shuts down and becomes withdrawn. She develops other worrisome emotional reactions, followed up by prescriptions of benzocaine or two. In the short term, the fool may react by trying to please the adult, but the fool knows right from wrong, and her communication needs should not be met with harm. The core of any teacher's approach could be love, compassion, connection, meaningful structure that develops a personal sense of autonomy and discipline. A life raised with a shame can become a life self-consciousness and internalized humiliation. History tells us that standing a child in the corner is a cruel, and science tells us it creates issues for the child in later life and greatly outweighs your perceived benefits. The fool is just about to leave the magic garden, where the grass has just been cut, and take up their journey on an open road. The fool is at present naive and young, yet hidden under the skin are the engravings of her emotions, the impressions imprinted and held by her memory. These are the childhood traumas that are not yet worked through, and perhaps can never be aired. If this poem has triggered anything for you, I'm not a psychiatrist. I am just a peer person who has experience of mental health issues, and I'm also dyslexic. But you can find and share with me on Dyslexic Rant in Twitter. Dyslexic is spelt wrong. It's spelt at DYSLXICRANT. That's Dyslexic Rant. You can follow me on Instagram, or you can just Google my name. And by the way, that was a true experience very recently, where I was berated by a teacher who was going to throw me out of Zoom for saying I did not understand.